Our objective for today, I can graph and identify a linear equation using the X and Y intercepts. See together, 1, 2, 3. I can graph and identify a linear equation using the X and Y intercepts. All right, so we started with linear equations before we went to our Thanksgiving break. And before that, we covered linear functions. That's why we don't need a Frere model today. But let me recap what we saw. What we saw in the past couple of weeks was graphing, pretty much. Is that correct? Do you agree with that? Bless you. And what kind of graphing did we do? Well, you were given an equation, and then what is the next thing we did? We solved for y, and then the next thing, make a table. Remember that? -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, and then we found our outputs, and then from there we plotted points and graphed our lines. Today I'm going to show you a different method of graphing, which is known as the X and Y intercepts, using the X and Y intercept. But before we get there, here goes the recap one more time. Linear functions, did we cover this? Yes. Did we cover linear equations? Yes. And we saw that now it included vertical lines. That's why no longer they were linear functions, now just linear equations. Copy these steps down, please. It's only 5 steps. And it says, step 1, use the cover-up method to eliminate one variable. Step 2, solve for the remaining variable. Step 3, repeat the steps 1 and 2 for the other variable. Step 4, plot your intercepts. And step 5, graph your line. Copy that, and then we'll get started with some examples. So, before we get started with the graphing part, let me just make clear in regards to what I'm talking about in regards to the intercepts. Here goes definitions. Don't write this down. Just pay attention. So, y-intercept, the definition for y-intercept is where the line intersects or crosses the y-axis. What line? The line that we graph. So if we were to graph a line and it crosses the y-axis, at the point it crosses the y-axis, that's known as the y-intercept. Are we there so far? So if that's true, tell your neighbor the definition for the x-intercept. That is correct, where the line intersects or crosses the x-axis. So let me show you really quick. Let's say I gave you the coordinate plane that looks something like this. Whoops, it's a little crooked. Hold on. Oh my goodness. Right there. And I'm going to graph the line in green. There it is. Okay. So the ones in black, that's my coordinate plane. The one in green is the one I graph. So y-intercept, where the line intersects or crosses the y-axis. Does everybody see the y-axis here? That means where this line intersects or crosses, this point is known as what? The y-intercept. Are we there so far? How about where the same line crosses the what? The x-axis. It crosses where? About right there. That's what we call the x-intercept. Does that make sense? The same line crosses at 2 points, at the y-axis and at the x-axis. So if it crosses at the y-axis, that's the y-intercept. The x-axis, that's the x-intercept. Are we there so far? All right. Don't copy this. I'm going to do one example myself. Ready? Write your utensils down. Look up to the screen. Just to make sure we understand what I'm going to be asking you for before we get to graphing. Before we get to graphing, I want you to identify the x and y intercepts. And this is how you do it. You're going to be given a graph. Here's my graph. First thing to do is identify, I'm going to identify the x-axis, the x-intercept. I'm going to use blue for that. And my y-intercept, I'm going to use red. So first of all, I'm going to go with my x-intercept. Does everybody see where that line crosses the x-axis? Yes, it crosses about right here. You place your point, label the coordinates. That coordinate is -2, 0. And then on the side, you're going to label x-intercept is -2, 0. Are we there so far? Next, Now I'm going to go to red because I need to identify the what? Y-intercept. Does everybody see where it crosses the y-axis? Right here, you place your point, label the coordinate. The coordinate is 0, 1. And on the side, you're going to write y-intercept, 0, 1. Pretty simple. Any questions on how to identify the X and Y intercept? All right. So now, on your graph paper, get that in front of you. I'm going to give you another graph, and you're going to identify the X and Y intercepts. Okay, so your graph paper should look something like this. Your coordinate plane, yes? Right now you have a blank coordinate plane. Doesn't matter if you're using a medium one or a big one. Just pick one and use that one. Y'all ready? Here we go. Sketch this line. You're saying, I don't see what points, Mr. Q. Well, let me give you the points. I want you to plot a point at -2, -4, which is down here. -2, -4. And the second point, I want you to plot it at 1, 10. 1, 10. 1, 10. So the first point is -2, -4. The other one has 1, 10. And then with your index card, I want you to sketch a line that goes through those 2 points all the way through. Arrows at the end, nice and straight. Now that you have a line, I want you to identify the Y-intercept and the X-intercept. Once again, use red for the Y-intercept and blue for the X-intercept. Do that by yourself. Ready, go. Once again, the 2 points given were -2, -4, and 1, 10. Once you plotted those 2 points, you sketch your line going through those 2 points, and then arrows at the end. Now that you have your line, you need to identify the X-intercept and the Y-intercept. 30 seconds. Let's see, Paul, help us out with the X-intercept. I'm going to switch to blue. What is the first thing you did? You plotted a point where they're intersect. Where does it intersect? -1, 0 right here, and you labeled your coordinate, right? -1, 0. And on the side, what did you write? X-intercept, -1, 0. Hands if you got that. Okay, good. Pass someone? Michael, what do we do next? Okay, Mel, help him up. You plot the Y-intercept. So I'm going to plot it. On mine, it looks like it's going to be like a fraction or a decimal. Some of you might have crossed at 5, and some of you might have crossed close to 6. I'm going to put mine in between. So let me zoom in for those of you that are wondering what's going on. Look at my line. Do you see that my line does not cross at 5 or 6? It's in between. Hands if you got something like that on yours. Who crossed at 5? Who crossed at 6? Okay, so some of us, because of where we place our point and our index card, it's kind of crooked, so that's why we're a little bit off, but that's okay. So if you got up to right there, Mel, what is my coordinate up to right there? Zero 6. Y-intercept 0, 6. Hands if you got 0, 6 for Y-intercept. Hands if you got 0, 5 for Y-intercept. And hands if you got 0.5.5 or something like that. Anyone? No? Was it just mine? Then it's probably just mine that's a little bit off scale. Some of you might have gotten some fraction, but any of those for right now will do for right now. Okay? Any questions on identifying X and Y intercepts? Pretty simple, right? Okay, so this is what I want you to do next. Go to the next coordinate plane. You have a blank one, right? All right, so watch. Look up to the screen. Look at this section right here. And this section right here. I want you to plot a point somewhere here and sketch a line through those points. So what does that mean? That it's not going to be exactly like your neighbors. You're going to have your own points, right? Did everybody get my point? Yes. And then once you sketch your line, I want you to identify the X and Y intercepts of your line. Do that right now. Ready, go. All right. Fairly simple, yes? Identifying X and Y intercepts, yes? Okay, show me over the fingers, 1 being the lowest, 5 being the highest, how comfortable you are with identifying X and Y intercepts from the graph. I got some 5, 5, 4s, 1, 3, 5, 5, 5, 5. Some of you need a manicure, all right? All right, so we're good, yes? Okay, so now that we're done identifying the X and Y intercepts, now we're going to graph an equation using the X and Y intercepts. So turn your paper over, or your graph paper over, and I want you to copy this one in the back, top left. Example 1, make sure you write the instructions. Graph the following line using the X and Y intercepts. Example 1, graph the following line using the X and Y intercepts. Equation given, 5x plus 2y equals 10. Copy that, please. All right. So writing utensils down, look up to the screen. So look what it says here. It says, graph the following line. If it didn't say using the X and Y intercepts, do we know how to graph this line from what we did last week? Yes, we know a method, right? So what was the first thing that we did? Look up, please. Now, this is what we did last week. Look up or you're going to miss it. First thing last week, we said we need to solve for y. So we needed to subtract 5x from each side. 2y equals negative 5x plus 10. Then divide by 2, y equals negative 5 halves x plus 5. And then from there, what do we do? X, y, negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, 2. You guys remember that? And then we needed to input this in there, do a bunch of work for the first part, get a number for that, do it again, another number. Remember that? A lot of work? Okay, so for today, I'm going to teach you a different method that doesn't require as much work. So it's more like a shortcut. So if you were ever to pay attention, here it goes. Write your utensils down, look up to the screen. This method we call the cover-up method. And let me show you why. From where you're at, with your thumb, I want you to cover up the y value of that equation from where you're at. Over here to the screen, with your thumb, cover up the y value. So you're covering up the y value, is that correct? So what is the only thing you see if you cover up the y value? What's left? 5x equals to 10. So watch. Okay? Now look up to the screen. Do I know how to solve this equation? Yes. Divide by 5. That leaves me with x equals 2. Well, guess what? This is my x-intercept. And I label it x-intercept 0, 2. Well, with that same idea, take your thumb. I'm sorry? Oh, my bad. 2, 0. Thank you. Yeah, I did it on purpose for your paying attention. 2, 0. With that same idea, take your thumb and cover up the x value from where you're at. What do you see that's left? 2y equals 10. Divide by 2, y equals 5. Well, guess what? This is my y-intercept. And I label that y-intercept 0, 5. And guess what? Now that I have those two, I can graph my line going through those 2 points. Is that fairly simple? So copy that, please. And as you're copying it, start thinking, which method do I like the most? Solving for y, making a table, negative 2, negative 1, or the cover-up method? I know, right? Cover up. Okay, copy that, please. Fairly simple, yes? X-intercept, Y-intercept. Okay, let's see if you can do one by yourself. Ready? On the other graph, copy this one. Example 3. You don't have to copy the instructions, just copy the equation. 4x plus 2y equals 16. Finding the x and y intercepts, plot the points, graph your line, and let's see what you get. Go. For what? Oh yeah, careful. Bye, have a good one. Wow. You're welcome.
Oh no. We'll talk it. Second. I wrote algebra 1 this week.
I know, I saw that. Math. Wow.